Yo, what's up guys? Oathkeeper here, and in this edition of Hyper Voice, we're going to go over the very, and I use this word loosely, minuscule tier shift that just happened for NU. We net gain, we got a net, increase of 0 mons, and we're gonna get into that. But first off, let's take a little roll call. You got me, and this time, he's actually here this time. He's not just a ghost. He's actually here this time. The man, the myth, the legend, Owen confirmed.
Hey everybody. Yeah, I made it this time around.
And we got the rest of the crew here, Spatial Rend.
Hey guys, my signature move is making my opponents click X.
And Awin.
Poggers. Hey, lose. Okay.
And Mary Annabelle.
Hello.
And GW.
DL. Can I please win already at this game?
And last but certainly not least, Zero Vis.
Yo, everyone.
Alright, so, yeah, like I said, this definitely was the most uneventful tier shift so far this gen. We got 2 mons from RU, and we lost 2 mons. And should we go over the ones that we did get, or the ones that we lost? Let's get the losses out of the way real quick. So the first of the mons that we lost, technically it wasn't even ours by usage, Tangela. It did rise up to RU from PU. Does anybody just want to give any quick thoughts? Owen, perhaps?
I used Tangula, I think, in week 1 of Snake, because it does have some advantages over Eldegoss. I really like Knockoff. I liked its, I just liked its supporting move pool a little bit better, or offensive move pool maybe. But yeah, it makes sense why it moved up. I think RU really liked it there, and it wasn't that big of a loss for us. Because again, it was just a side grade to Goth and everything.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, like you said, Eldegoss just kind of had a little bit more, utility. Anybody else have any thoughts? Anybody can just jump in with it.
To be honest, I'm kind of surprised because Tangela was used for a little bit in NU, and by a little bit, I mean barely at all. And so I don't know what the hell RU's doing. But
well, at least I kind of feel like it might be an answer to Golurk.
They have Goldark up there, and also what's it called? Delmise. It's good for Delmise.
Delmise,
okay.
yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, then that's fair. So I can understand why RU would want it. And anybody else, any other thoughts, or should we move on to the other one?
My only experience with Tangle is back when Kangaskhan first dropped into the tier and people were trying to figure out what to do with it. I saw a lot more Tangela, I think maybe as basically one of the hardest stops to Kanga you could hope for. I hadn't seen any of it since, so I just assumed it was a niche pick at best. So, I wouldn't call it a huge loss for a tier or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it was here and there, but I didn't see overly used.
It's a huge loss to my cursed regenerator team, but that's about it.
we don't need that kind of stall crap here. We don't need it. Yeah, you call it a regenerator team. I call it stall. You can put whatever label you want on it.
Yeah, despite Tangela's pretty good special attack, I basically only saw it on hard stall, which is to say almost never.
Yeah. Alright, so now we can get into the other mon that had to leave, unfortunately, Decidueye. This Decidueye was actually ranked pretty high. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but it was S rank before it left. And it was doing, really well until, the new kids on the block came around with the September shift that we got, and then it just kind of, started losing credibility, I guess, in a way. But Owen, what are your thoughts on Decidueye leaving? I know.
Oh, the said? Well, I thought it wasn't really that popular at the end of the month. What was it? What was really. Oh, Sneasel was the big one that we got last month. That really hurt it. I thought there was Sneasel, just like just a less of a need for a special wall breaker too.
Yeah, I agree.
Very kind of over.
Yes, Spatial, what do you think?
I could kind of see Decidueye gradually falling off in popularity. I think what really hurt is that its primary set, which would be the special wall breaking set, Miltank was one of the most, maybe splashable is the wrong word, but it was basically the premier utility mon at the time. So when you're a wall breaker that really struggles to actually get past one of the most prominent walls in the tier, I don't really think that bodes well for you as a mon in general. So I think it did have its place, but I think just in the current meta, it's like Hoenn said, there's a lot less need for something like it. I don't think it's going to be too huge of a loss.
This is what, like Hoenn and Spatial said, I think it really thrived in previous meta before we got the September shifts, because the meta was a lot slower. Now we got faster shit. Or we had Sneasel for, coming back down, and then we had the Bombi, Frostmoth Thief, special attacks, rise in popularity, and Rotom. I feel like it suffered from being slower, and now a new fast-paced meta, and then also new toy syndrome, just kind of push it into obscurity.
Sadly, yeah.
After we got all this cool stuff like Sneasel and Whimsicott and Ombi, manning the special attacker stations, they all benefited from being faster. And in addition, Pokemon like Ninetales and Rapidash became more common as faster checks to a lot of these things. And that just compounds Decidueye's problem, because it's just outsped by all these new threats, and it's outsped by a lot of the answers to these new threats. And then there's obviously Sneasel being one of the best mons in the tier before it ended up going away, which we'll get to later, obviously.
Right.
Just whack.
And then GW.
I mean, yeah, obviously, Decidueye not really seeing as much usage with all of our offensive Pokemon to check it, like Sneasel, a lot of other stuff. Whimsicott as a potential better grass, and it was used a lot before the shift. But it's a bit sad to see it go. But I don't think it was seeing a ton of usage anyways. All right, it's whatever. Aerovis, you think?
Yeah, I mean, you guys summed most of it up. I really do think that the main thing that made it drop like a sack of potatoes was the high offensive presence of Sneasel, Ninetales, Rarbombi, etc. Because, in August it was like Decidueye plus Miltank meta, like all month. And those two were just, needed for each other basically, like they were on most teams. So, I guess just, putting it on a team when mons like Sneasel and Ninetales are so common, just is sort of a liability when other options are available. So yeah, and it's weird though. I'm curious really what you needed it for. I don't know if anyone wants to speak to that.
I'm on the MP thread right now, and I guess it's because it has so much versatility offensively, and that Ghost is a really good offensive type.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was GW that was saying that Golurk is pretty popular up there right now, so I could see it being a pretty solid answer to that.
And Delmise as well. So yeah, so it has I'd say a niche, maybe more than that there. So
yeah, and I mean it will be missed, but at the same time, we also got such a huge influx of special attackers, a lot of toys to play with. So
oh yeah,
I don't think it's a huge impact on the meta.
No, not at all. It's like a very minimal effect. But yeah, like I said, it'll be missed. All right, so that's the two things we lost. Now to the stuff that we got. I'll go over it real quickly, seeing as though we're gonna get back to it. A little bit after a little bit of time passes here. Snorlax and Escavalier. Snorlax was quick banned earlier. I want to say earlier this morning by the council. It was a 8-1 ban to do not ban vote. Rabia being the only person who didn't want it banned. And I feel this was the right decision in my mind, because it's like, if you're lacking, the right, mod or the right switch in, the right anything to Snorlax, like its curse set can just, completely finish you, destroy you, wall you, whatever. And even a bandit set can be problematic. Hohen, what do you think?
It felt like an obvious or like an easy enough quick ban for console to vote on. Just easy to justify. I mean, that thing's BST is huge, and I don't think NU even had Sneasel like once in its history, let alone in like the limited decks like Gen 8. But like to speak of like right now, we did have maybe some wall breakers that could potentially break it or phase it, but I understand it. There wasn't too much to it. I didn't want to run in the same stuff over and over again, or maybe to have something like from lower tiers come up, like maybe Gorg could potentially, like a defensive Gorgush could maybe have dealt with it. I didn't look at all the defensive counterplay for it, but preemptively, I'm not that upset that we didn't get too much time to play along with it. But
yeah, it's whatever. I mean, we had it for what, like 2-3 days? Yeah, give or take. But yeah, go ahead, Spatial.
Yeah, Snorlax is just one of those mons where I think it's one of the very rare cases where it doesn't need to have a whole lot of time in the meta for people to just realize, oh hey, this is nuts, we need to get rid of it now. And that's not to say Snorlax was completely unstoppable. It had some answers depending on what set it was running and what its choice of coverage was. But whether you win or lose Snorlax depends entirely upon what coverage it's running, and if you have the threat that walls that set without that coverage, then I think that just speaks in general to how Snorlax wouldn't have been healthy at all for the tier if it was allowed to stay. So I wholeheartedly support the council's decision to ban Snorlax and just get it out of the tier.
Yeah, personally, I think Snorlax, the fact that Snorlax, like Gens 1 through 7, absolute baller mon. And then it just got shafted by everything getting CC'd. And then you look at the mons that are like down in NU. You got like things like Lantern, Kingler, Ninjas, things you would expect to be down here, and then bam, Snorlax. And then the fact that it has 160 HP, 110 speed death, you eat like every special attack in the game. And it's pretty easy to get free opportunities to curse and then Darkest Lariat, Body Slam, everything. Mm-hmm. I just thought it was too much for this year. I'm glad it's gone. I loved using it, but glad it's gone.
Truly, I think X was mostly problematic because of the numbers. Like, Snorlax's bulk was enough that you basically couldn't justify not using it as just a carpet check for every special attacker, just neutrally. Was just enough. Just neutrally eat every thing you'd throw at it, basically. And it was really hard to just neutrally check in that sense, because it's like most of the tier just doesn't have the stats to really hurt it significantly without just dying in the process. I think there were a few Pokemon like, Gallade and Poliwrath and Girder, stuff like that could really annoy it. But I think it's a lot easier for the Snorlax team to compensate for Snorlax's weaknesses than it was for everything else to compensate for Snorlax.
I mean, yes, Snorlax obviously has an absurd amount of Spadef. I mean, it's kind of similar to Chansey, but instead of soft boiled, it gets cursed, so that way you have to bring in your fighting type that very turn. Else it's like you don't even knock it out the following turn. Or you just switch in your Glade and you get Body Slam parried, and then it's literally useless the rest of the game. Then you got the Darkest Lair for the ghost types. After a few days, it's pretty obvious it should be banned. It never really belonged here in the first place, so now it's gone. Yeah. Rovis?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the ban. I think it's interesting because Snorlax is in a way different from a lot of the mons that have been banned from NU this time around. Like if you look at Turtonator, for example, like a mon like that, like there are no ways to beat, like after it sets up, there's no ways to deal with it, right? Snorlax is different because we did have ways to deal with it. Like you said, people could bring in their fighting types. You got Banded Glade, you got Sock, there are a couple answers, but when people start talking about running things like Storm Throw, just to be able to, crit through this mon's curses, or, running phasing mons that you wouldn't normally run, basically just having to modify any team that you use in NU to have a solid answer. I don't know, there are other mons that we've had to do that for, like Ninetales, for example. Early in this meta, everyone had to have, some sort of Ninetales check on their team to deal with it. But I think further than that, just looking at Snorlax's base stats too, it was just too much, and it would have gotten to the point where it was a totally Snorlax-centric meta. So I do think that the ban was healthy, all in all.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It was just, at least I feel, it was just going to be problematic in the end. Way too problematic for the meta to handle. You brought up Storm Throw, and I mean, sure, that could have dealt with it, but I mean, there's not a whole lot of anything after that could have dealt with it, except SD Glade or, Bulk Up Poliwrath, or whatever, but, it's gone. We don't have to worry about it now, so moving on. The other mon that we got from RU, Escavalier, this was, fortunately, it was on the voting slate, which we're going to get to here in a minute. It was on the voting slate of 7 mons that were nominated. Only 4 of the council members voted ban, so it is going to stay NU, at least for the time being. And it's also the right call. I mean, it's only got one weakness in fire. And we do lack some fire types aside from Rapidash or Silvally Fire or Ninetales. And at least I feel it can fit in. I mean, it's slow as a slug, but Hoenn, what are your thoughts?
I don't have too much to say just because I haven't had that much testing with it. I'm all for another steel type in the meta, definitely one that's for, the fairies. And I think maybe it was Expulso in the NP thread that had all those calcs about how, whether it was CB or SD, you could break through pretty much everything. That kind of sounds scary on paper, but it hasn't been like that, too bad from what I've seen of it so far. So I'm optimistic with it, but, that could change quickly.
Special, go ahead.
I'm very excited for Escavalier, mostly just because it may be personal bias talking, because I think its design is absolutely incredible. But from a gameplay perspective, I can definitely understand the concerns about Escavalier being a lot to handle, especially because it's comparing it to Scizor would be the wrong idea, but it at least functions somewhat similarly in that it's a bulky bug steel type that it can leverage its typing to get a lot of opportunities to attack. I think the main I think the main thing holding Escavalier back is just that its speed stat is absolutely atrocious. So no matter how powerful it is or how bulky it is, it's never going to get the initiative, which I think opens up a lot of opportunities for counterplay, either by a faster fire types like the increased usage of Ninetales or Rapidash, or even just faster special attackers in general, because it just isn't going to have a lot of times to strike first. So in general, I do think it's something to be keeping an eye on for sure. I just don't think it's going to be as broken as some people are fearing.
No.
Right. I feel that way too. I feel like there are definite ways to beat it because of its slow speed stat. But I've been having a lot of fun with this one because Bug Steel, it's mostly the steel type that gives it, defensive aspects, but it has good bulk and it has baller offensive coverage, knockoff Ironhead, CC, even Razor Shell for tech, and then also having Sword Stance. I think it's like a very kind of like splashable defensive offensive mon, if that makes sense. Like, it provides so much defensive utility even if you don't necessarily need it for that utility. It's just such a nice mon. Maybe I could see it being banned if it, starts to pop off like I think it will. But as of right now, I'm not necessarily sure.
Yeah, Escavalier, until somebody called it Escavalier just now, I spent years thinking it was Escavalier. I think it's a really nice addition. I like having more steel types around to check the likes of, Bright Bombi and whatnot. I don't consider Escavalier to be particularly problematic. Some people are scared of, the big attack, the big bulk, the coverage. But I think that it's different from something comparable. Like, Snorlax is also a slow thing with big attack and big bulk. But the thing about what sets Escavalier apart from Snorlax is Escavalier's bulk sometimes tends to be overestimated, because while 107 in defense and special defense, is that the right number?
105.
Well, that's pretty solid. It's still kind of held back by the 70 base HP, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just have the bulk to just neutrally blank check everything. Like, it's not going to be super happy to just breaks from like offensive Mudsdale or something like that. In addition, its typing also means that a lot of defensive threats, like let's just take Wheezing as an example. Even if you can, 3 KO it or something, you can't just whack it too easily because it can always wisp on you. It can just really wreck you with Flamethrower. A lot of the stuff that Escavalier will want to beat up will be able to strike first, and on top of that, it doesn't have the bulk to just blank check the whole tier. So I don't consider Escavalier to be broken in that sense. I could change my mind if Escavalier starts slapping bans on and slapping everybody, but until then, I think it's too problematic. How about you, GW, my man?
Alright, obviously, yes, Cavalier has a really nice defensive typing. Steel types in general are pretty good right now, being able to check our fairy types, which is Whimsicott and Rabombi. Also a pretty nice dragon resist. It can check Baldon very well, which is something very few Pokemon can do right now. It's also not weak to body press thanks to its bug typing. Obviously, it's very slow, but it has insane coverage. I think it'll be a top tier mon for sure. Maybe it'll get suspected in the future, but probably not. I think it's all right. There's plenty of defensive mons that can run like fire moves or like Will-O-Wisp or something. Azerovis.
To sum it up, honestly, I really do love this mon. Like we were saying last month that it was just like a couple percentage, like point percentage from falling, and I was joking with Rabia that was because of me hanging on to it in RU. I love using it. Bug Steel typing is such a sweet typing, and this mon in particular is just like the definition of a bulky offensive mon. Like you guys have said, like its speed is one main thing that holds it back from being like overpowered by any means, or having like crazy sweeps or anything. But it really can do its job with its stat spread. Like 105 in both defenses gives it like really solid bulk, even without investment. Which gives you the freedom to like run offensive spreads like just max HP, max attack, and still be able to eat like a spec spoon blast or something and totally murk whatever's throwing that at it. So I think it's actually a really healthy addition to our tier right now, which has things that are spammed like Rabombi, Whimsicott, Duraludon that Escavalier can actually answer to. And like GW said too, it has excellent coverage. It has close combat, which is really good for it. And then otherwise, it has a good stab move in Iron Head. In RU, a lot of people were running Megahorn, but I don't think it'll be as common here. We'll probably just see close combat Iron Head knockoff, and then probably some sort of fourth coverage move there. I really like the Swords Dance set because if you can get it that one turn, then you're looking at like 800 attack right there, so it's very dangerous, and it usually has the bulk to be able to survive a hit as long as it's not coming from Ninetales or Rapidash for us. So I think the speed is probably what will hold it back from getting banned or suspected or anything like that, but I really am happy about its addition to the tier, and I think it's going to be not only a lot of fun to play with, but it's going to laugh in the face of some of the things that have been giving people trouble, like Rabombi, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a great addition to the meta, in my opinion. I agree with all the statements you guys just made. All right, so like I said earlier, there was a voting slate that was posted earlier this morning. Like we're talking like while I was still asleep this morning. And there were 7 mons voted on. Snorlax, obviously, we just talked about that. It was one of the 2 bans. The other ban being Sneasel. It got 7 out of 9 votes to be banned. So, I mean, that is... I'm actually I like that decision. Sneasel had little to no counterplay, to be honest. I mean, Poliwrath being, one definite switch in. Other than that, it's like you kind of had to, either let something take a knockoff or an ice move and then bring in like something like Scarf Gallade or your specs for Bombi. Like Hoenn, would you think Sneasel being banned was the right call?
Yeah, I thought that Sneasel could have went. I think I made a post about this earlier, but yeah, I was definitely fine with Sneasel going just because we've had so many threats in this meta that's just been really hard to build for. Sneasel definitely being one of them where you needed that defensive fighting type like Poliwrath or Girder or like some sort of offensive counterplay that revolved around, the fairies that were good, their U-turn, Savali Steel. So we had stuff in the meta, but it was really hard switching them in between knockoff, removing items, or Icicle Crash flinches. So, I definitely wasn't the biggest supporter of it. I understand how the relevant counterplay maybe meant that it was manageable for some people. But if it's on the fence for me, I'm fine with Sneasel being gone.
Special.
Yeah, Sneasel, in a word, Sneasel was busted. Like, it's somewhat similar to Snorlax in that, it's not like it was completely unstoppable, but a lot of your counterplay was pretty much limited to either running Poliwrath or something like Girder on every team, or just getting bodied whenever Sneasel got in. And even then, something like Girder, it absolutely despised losing its Eviolite, and Poliwrath absolutely hated losing its leftovers. So Sneasel was always making progress one way or another. And I think that just that sheer power, it just really made it overwhelming. And not to mention its speed really did just... It's basically the perfect storm of an offensive mon. So I really don't have any qualms with it being banned. I think the meta will be better for it. And teams will see a lot more diversity since they aren't forced to slap on Poliwrath or Girder, basically just so they don't die to Sneasel immediately.
Right. I think, like, a personal philosophy that I have is that if a mon is only able to be offensively checked, then it's a little bit problematic. Because there's like Spatial and Home were saying, defensive counterplay was limited to Poliwrath and Girder, if I'm not mistaken. I can't really think of anything else. But it's fast, and with a band, it hits really hard, and then that means you're forced to, pack a Scarf Gallade, be forced to run one of the faster fairies and pressure it with that, and even then, taking a banded Ice Shard kind of hurts both Rebombi and Whimsicott. So I think banning Sneasel was the right play, or the right decision, I should say, by the council.
Right. Yeah, I'm a little bit biased because you know what? Jask hates Sneasel Ice Shard. Apart from that, I mean, people know what I think about Sneasel. I think that it's a little bit hard to offensively check sometimes, and I hard to defensively check a lot of the time. I think a lot of Mons are going to be really happy that Sneasel is gone. It's like, just take, I don't know, Ninetales as an example. Ninetales doesn't need very much damage tacked on, just like Chip, to just like die to knockoff. Because banded knockoff hit hard. And I think there was a lot of Mons that are going to find themselves in a lot better position when they're not being forced out by stab knockoff, and the incoming check isn't being potentially crippled because of stab knockoff. I think all teams are just going to have an easier time now that their offensive threats aren't just being threatened out with stab knockoff. About you, GW.
Yeah, I think Ninjask has kind of had a long due ban. It's very broken. It has a really high speed stat. It can run heavy duty boots. It can run the Ice Shard. There's really nothing that wants to switch into a knockoff plus Icicle Crash. The only thing that can really take Icicle Crash without getting severely crippled for the rest of the game instantly is maybe one of the Savali forms, but most of them get destroyed by Icicle Crash anyways. The only remotely decent one there would be Fifth Step Savali Water. But even then, it's basically impossible to deal with. I mean, I guess Gastro as well. But yeah. And the boost SD set and Bandit sets are just really hard to deal with. I mean, I know it makes Ninjask better, but unfortunately we have to ban it because I guess Mary Annabelle has to be the best player on this planet or something. I had to do it soon. Arrowverse.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed spamming knockoff as much as the next guy, but I think that really was the core of the issue with Sneasel, is that, it's not like another mon that's just spamming a purely offensive move that does damage, and yeah, it's tough to check it if you don't have the right thing. But in this case, when it's choice banded knockoff that you're trying to check, even your check, if you didn't bring Poliwrath or Girder like you guys said, it'd be something else that would be taking a big chunk of damage and losing its item. So the fact that it just had an ability to force that pressure on an opposing team, pretty much no matter what, I don't know. It was a bit of an oppressive mon, I'd say. So probably a solid ban.
Yeah, it was just becoming problematic. Very limited counterplay, which I'm pretty sure was mentioned. So and let's put it this way: it's one less thing you need to consider in team building, which I think we can all appreciate. Am I right?
For real.
Yeah. So the just to put it out there, the other 5 mons that were up on the slate were Duraludon. Yes, Cavalier was also on the voting slate. Gallade, Mariana Bell's very very favorite mon to use here in the NU meta, Ninjask, and Rabambi. Sadly, or not actually, no, not sadly. This is good. I actually want them all here. None of them got enough ban votes to be removed from the meta. So only 2 out of the 7. So we still got like a nice mixed meta in my opinion. Let's see what else is there to go over here. I think that was, like I said, this was a very uneventful tier shift. The Crown Tundra is going to be releasing on October 22nd, and I want to say as of November 1st, we'll get a small chunk of those mons from there, including NFEs. So that'll be some nice additions to the meta. Other than that, is there, like, as far as like the NU League that's going on right now, there's both cycles are currently going on. I know I was just booted out of Cycle 1 by a certain RU player who I will not name because he just kicked my butt today as well.
Sensei Axia.
Shut up.
Sensei
We're and I know Mariana Bell, I know you're still in the Cycle 2. I know I'm not sure if you've played yet. I'm pretty sure you haven't. I haven't seen any post from you or your opponent or whatnot, but
Yeah, my guy just now requested an extension.
which I will grant. You wouldn't be the only one, so yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah. But yeah, so I may have lost, but I just go to the losers bracket. So now instead of playing every other week, I'm playing every week, like before. Is there anything that I missed or anything that we should touch on before we close it out here?
I just want to say, Abejas, if you're watching this, GG. I really like the teams you rolled up with. Even though I lost, I had fun in those games, and maybe we'll face each other again if I manage to get my way through the losers bracket.
Huh, there you go. Oh yeah, and me and Spatial will be playing a team tour match. Definitely not going to do it on this call since it's a tour match and no ghosting allowed, or else we're both disqualified. So I'll definitely record that, or at least record the replay of it at the very least, win or lose. So hope you guys stay tuned for that. But other than that, yeah, this was definitely a short cast because, like I said, uneventful tier shift and all that. But we discussed what we needed to discuss. So hope you guys liked it. If you did, drop a like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Till then, peace out.